Order, order. Hello and welcome to Reporters Without Orders, a podcast where we talk about what made news, what didn't, and some things that absolutely shouldn't have. I'm your host Tanishka Sodhi, and joining me today are two RWO debutants who have done some fantastic stories this last week. In the studio, we have Sukriti Vats, a writing fellow at the Land Conflict Watch Action, and full disclosure, she's also a close friend and my batchmate. And joining us online is Bhavani, a reporter at the News Minute. Hi guys, welcome to RWO. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
So before we get into the stories, it is also the first time I think we three have covered elections. You both have also been doing some great election stories. So tell us a little about where you have reported from and what your experience has been like.
So I have covered a story in Madhya Pradesh. It was about app One Mitra, which is supposed to help the tribal communities get rights over their land.
Okay.
However, the portal, the technology has not been it's not been working for a long time. The Forest Right Act is what, it gives settlement under Forest Right Act, but that has not been happening. So even though both the parties, BJP and Congress, are talking about, getting settled, helping the communities get settlement over their land, when the process through which you get the rights is not working, when the technology is not working, you're not really addressing that. You talk about giving it after election once they are in power. But if just the process is not the best, then how can you make such promises? So it's about the problems with the technology.
And where were you in MP and what was the election fever like?
It was much more in MP, the election fever, but I also went to Rajasthan quite recently for another story, which was conflicts around renewable energy projects. And I think the fever in Rajasthan was not as much.
So fever-wise, MP wins. What about you, Bhavani? How has your experience been and what have you been focusing on?
The story is not out yet. It's about 2 BHK also. It's a 2-bedroom, double bedroom scheme that Telangana government has promised to give to the beneficiaries about 10 years ago. And one more story I reported is about how KCR has promised so many promises he made, but none of them has been fulfilled. So when you see both of it, the number of people there in the state and number of beneficiaries are less than 10% beneficiaries, or all of them are. But still, but he is banking on these votes.
Okay. And what is the election color like in Telangana? Tell us a little about the experience over there.
Honestly, we thought if BJP, if Bandi Sanjay, who was the state president, if he would have been, it would have been much more fun to cover. But now I think it's not that as much. This week, I think there is a lot of campaigning going on. But till now, there was nothing like that.
I guess in the last leg is always when things really escalate, right? Since it's the last week, Telangana votes on 30th
November. Everybody is in Telangana. Amit Shah is in Telangana. Annamalai is in Telangana.
Newslaundry is also in Telangana.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're going to be discussing today Sukriti's ground report from Ramgarh in Jharkhand. This was published in Down to Earth last week. And the story explored how, because of center-state tussle and bureaucratic incompetencies, compensation for land acquisition has been awaited for more than 20 years. We're going to be speaking to Bhavani, who has been, along with the rest of the News Minute and News Laundry team, been on the election trail in Telangana, which votes on November 30th. We've been on the ground, not just in Telangana, but in all the 5 states that have voted this month or are going to be voting. News Laundry and News Minute have collaborated to bring you extensive election stories, and we're only able to do this with your support. So before we move on, if you haven't already, please contribute to News Laundry and News Minute's joint election fund and help us bring you great stories, because we're stronger together and we're even stronger with you. So we're going to be starting with Bhavani's story. Her story traces KCR's many schemes for Dalits and their faulty implementation. So Bhavani, one of the most important schemes for KCR, your story says, is for Dalits is the Dalit Bandhu scheme, in which eligible SC families would receive rupees 10 lakh financial assistance. But your report highlights how Dalit activists have said that this scheme is being implemented in a shoddy manner. Can you explain the scheme and the criticism around it?
So in 2014, KCR promised a CM candidate would be from the Dalit community. It was not fulfilled. Then in 2018, in 2021, just before elections, a by-election, so one of his close friend splits from the party because there were corruption allegations.
Okay.
And then he joins BJP. So then there is a bipole. So that time he announces this Dalit Bandhu scheme, and just during that time, he also announces like lot of people, the highest number of beneficiaries are from this constituency. So it is implemented in an illogical manner. Why are people from other constituencies not? There are not 20,000 beneficiaries in other constituencies.
Okay, can you just tell us a little about this scheme? Like, what exactly, how do you need to be eligible for this? Are all Dalits eligible? How is it supposed to be given? Is it a one-time thing or is it over a period of time? Just elaborate a little about it.
In first phase, they told that 100 people will be selected from one constituency. And in another phase, it's like the saturation phase. Like if there are 100 Dalits, everybody will get in that village.
Oh, okay.
It's like that.
Okay.
So in some places, it is saturation mode, and some places it is 100 people. What happens is when you apply, you'll get 10 lakh rupee, like 9.9 lakh exactly, into your account, where the district administration will come and help you with setting up a poultry, or give you some buffaloes for dairy, or give you a tractor, something like that. But the main drawback is that it is not proportionate to the people population. There are less than 1 lakh beneficiaries of this scheme now.
And how many Dalits are there in Telangana?
According to census, it's 54 lakh Dalits.
Oh, wow.
It's almost 20% nearly, but it's a per household scheme.
Right. And your story has also mentioned how KCR in public events and press meets used to promise that Telangana's first chief minister would be a Dalit legislator, but clearly that did not happen. And I believe he has publicly acknowledged that as well, saying that it did not happen. And what are his reasons for not keeping to his promise? And are they legit reasons or are they excuses? How is it perceived?
He simply said in a press meet that, like in 2018, people accepted me. They're happy with my decision. Let's go with it. That's what his statement was when the press asked.
Right. And I see that BJP and Congress have been of late using that, that's one of the election strategies, using that particular sentence of him to ask him where his promises were, right? I believe even Prime Minister Modi spoke about this and said that you did not keep to your promise.
Everybody is pointing out to it, but he is on a stand that people have accepted it. Why are you making a lot of fuss about it? That's what he said.
Right. And, your story also goes into how historically Dalits have supported KCR, but some sections right now are not very happy. So if they're not happy with him, what parties are you finding that they are leaning towards, and why? Like, what are BJP and Congress doing to get the voters?
So I think historically they were with the Congress because there were schemes like assignment, like lands were assigned. Dalits are historically landless. So assignment lands were given, and houses were also constructed. So they were with Congress, but in 2014 when Telangana was formed, he promised the Dalit CM. So everybody rallied behind him. But now I think the voter are made sure that whom they'll go with. I think it could be Congress, but also because there are beneficiaries, a lot of beneficiaries from Dalit Bandhu scheme, and also the land distribution scheme, they might go with him.
Okay.
Still.
And I see that BJP also has been actively reaching out to Dalits in Telangana. Tell us a little about their outreach and what are they promising and what are people thinking about that?
It's a very interesting political landscape that has developed in the past few months, because there is this organization called MRPS. So Dalit subcategorization has been like a demand for over 30 years now. there are two communities called Malas and Madigas. So Madigas are greater in number, but they are much more backward than the Malas. Both of them belong to Dalit groups only. So Madigas have been demanding a subcategorization so that they'll get a designated amount of reservation, percentage of reservation.
Right.
And the MRPS has supported everybody. They reached out to every party to support putting forth their demand that we want this. But it's the BJP that has promised even more. Prime Minister Modi has come to Hyderabad. Both the leaders, MRPS leader Mandakrish Madiga, Modi was here. It was a huge event. That's how the subcategorization is the word, like how they are reaching out to Dalits.
Right. And is it getting are people also leaning towards BJP because of this promise of subcategorization, or is it sort of looked as just words that are not going to be fulfilled?
Within the community only there is a divide. There's a rift. People are questioning MRP's integrity going with the BJP because of its ideology. And some others say, why not? Let's give everybody a chance. Let's see what will happen.
Yeah. And another crucial scheme that you have spoken about in your report is the land distribution scheme, which was announced before the 2014 assembly elections. So what is the status of this scheme now, considering that it has almost been a decade since it was introduced?
You can see the numbers. Like there are at least hardly 7,000 people beneficiaries in the whole state. And according to the guidelines is that poor SC women will be given 3 acres of land.
Okay.
Because considering, I told you, the landlessness. But now the government says the cost of unit, like per unit, has increased. Like 1 acre might be 7 lakh is what they said. But now one acre is very costly, and we cannot provide that scheme. But when we question them, has the scheme been stalled? They do not agree to it, but of course it's almost close to being stalled now.
Seriously, like they've just stopped implementing the scheme.
Like over 1 year, I think there are only 1,000 beneficiaries. Like,
oh no! And is this scheme specifically for Dalit women, or is it for Dalit men as well?
No, it's only for Dalit women. It's,
okay.
Like all the schemes are given by the women name.
And are there still a lot of people who have not received the scheme yet and have been trying to get it, but what is the process? Do you have to apply to get it, or does the state recognize?
Yeah, you have to apply to get it. If there is a government land, they will provide. But the same thing, the government logic is that there is no government land left. So Dalit activists are questioning why they are not acquiring land when they could acquire for projects or for constructing buildings like their party building and everything. They're acquiring land, but why not for Dalits?
And the scheme has not been disbanded yet, so it technically still exists, right? Like on paper. So it is odd to just not implement it.
It's also odd that they're saying the government land is not available, because wherever I've been, the government land is always more than the private land or other forms of khatedari land. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think these are things that are going to matter a lot this election? Are these issues going to be in people's mind when they cast votes?
Rural side, there is a lot of opposition to the schemes, all like how these are implemented.
Right.
There's a lot of anti-incumbency, but there should be a strong player to promise things. But Congress has promised 12 lakh to Dalit beneficiaries.
Right.
Hope that will make any difference.
Sure. Okay. So moving from one topic of land to another, Sukriti, Ramgarh is a coal belt in Jharkhand, and this story is about farmland acquired by Center Coalfields Limited about 22 years ago, right? So can you explain the circumstances under which land was acquired 2 decades ago, and what are the legal and ethical concerns around this?
Okay, so the land was acquired under a Coal Bearing Act 1957. So this act allows for as much as acquisition possible for whatever is required for mining or exploration of land for coal mining. So this has been in practice since 1957. A lot of land has been acquired over the years. So this act has already been criticized for a lot of things. It's because here you can acquire the land without even consulting the communities. The compensation is secondary.
Right.
You give a notification in the Gazette. That means the land has been acquired by the government. And then you can decide on the compensation, which is also most happens unilaterally. Like you don't really consult the communities, you don't negotiate with them. So this has been a problem for a long time. This was brought to my attention through a parliamentary proceeding where there was a question asked about a specific area in Jharkhand where the compensation was delayed for over 2 decades. This was asked by a Rajya Sabha MP who belonged to that village. So that was very interesting.
Right.
And in the response, the central government had stated that the reason for delay was because we have been asking the state government to verify the land records so that we can give the compensation, but the state government has been unresponsive. Now, there were 2 interesting things here. One, that is they finally agreed first that there are some compensation that has been delayed. Because in most cases, whenever a question like that is asked, like there's never a straight answer. It's mostly about, okay, they might be delayed, but they might be delayed for a number of reasons.
Here they've acknowledged
that it has been delayed. They also shifted the blame to the state government, which I thought was very interesting, and I wanted to explore more of that. So that was the first thing that made me want to go to that place and see what really the problem is. Now, problem of compensation is very common. Like it's there everywhere. And, people keep on asking that why are you focusing on this now? So there are a lot of things that are happening right now. First is there are a lot of conversation happening around just transition. I don't know if you know, but in policy circles, there are a lot of discussions happening about moving to green energy and also helping the people who were employed by the fossil fuel industry to get jobs away from there. Because like even in coal mining, like coal mines are going to be exhausted. The reserves are going to be exhausted. So people will have to be employed somewhere else. But even before you're coming to this discussion, we have completely forgotten about the legacy issue, which is that compensation that was supposed to be given for the land acquired decades ago, several decades ago, that has not been resolved. The world has moved on. The world is going on discussing about the other things when you have such a huge problem. So I thought that it was important to highlight that. Secondly, there has also been a lot of discussions going on around amendments to the Coal Bearing Act 1957. So that has also been opposed for a lot of reasons by the Jharkhand government as well.
What are people saying? In what way should it be amended?
So when you lease out the land, so what does the companies do? They lease out the land for a certain period of time. Mostly it's about 20-30 years. That's what they think, okay, that is the amount of time that will be taken to mine out the coal. But after the amendment, they will get the rights or they will lease out the land for eternity. Like it's going to be, like there's no limit to it. So there will be no returning of the land back to the government or to the people, to the communities, which is very interesting because even when the coal mines reserves are exhausted, even then the land will be in the name of the government.
Right.
So that are the reason why it is being opposed. But then again, before coming to that discussion, why are we not talking about the original act that has caused so much problem? So much problem, including the ones that I covered.
Right. And explain this tussle a little. Center is saying that state is not implementing. And what is the state saying?
This is very interesting because I knew there were going to be these are what I call bureaucratic hassle. So when I went to the state government department, the circle office of the Ramgarh, and they said ki yes, we have been getting the request to verify the records, but we are not getting the documents to verify it. So like
from whom? The people?
From the CCL. The CCL, they say, is supposed to provide them the documents of the tenants, of the people who have that land, so that they can see the records and they can verify it from their revenue records. Like they have their own revenue records. But if they are not getting the documents, they can't verify it. So now when this question was asked, so it was very interesting that within that office, they called the CCL people, the Central Coalfield Limited people, they called it and they were like, why did you write this response? So the person who drafted the response, he came to that office and he's like, you're right. We have asked you, but we didn't provide you documents. So they accepted that the issue was that we didn't provide the documents. But the reason was that tenants were not providing us the documents. So then the blame was shifted to the tenants themselves,
Right.
the people who are supposed to get the compensation. Now, obviously, why would tenants not provide the documents? They have been waiting to get the compensation for so long. They have told me, they have showed the paperwork that they have collected over the years, that they have submitted to different offices, to the CCL, to their head office, to the general manager office. Why would they not provide the documents? Because that is what will get them the compensation.
Right.
So that was very interesting, the tussle. And
Yeah.
obviously there's a bureaucratic lethargy. Like verification happens, then you say, okay, this document is missing. Like you get the genealogical map or you get the other sort of attested copies you have to get. Now these people, they don't know much. They are not very educated. These people are not much aware. They don't want to spend a lot of money on the paperwork as well. They have to spend the money on travel as well. So it gets really difficult for them. Every time these officials will ask them, okay, do this or do that. Like these kinds of bureaucratic hurdles that are there, obviously that's a constant across the country, but here it just gets really bad because the source of livelihood has been taken. They have not been compensated for that,
Right.
and
you met,
no legal recourse.
Right. And you met several of these families. So
Yes.
tell us, how many are affected families? How have their lives been altered by this thing that happened 22 years ago? And elaborate more about what are the efforts they are, or I mean, are they still trying, or is it like 1 out of 10 people who is still even trying, and have the
Yeah.
rest just like given up on getting compensation? And have they received no compensation, or they've received a little compensation?
Okay, so I focused on 3 villages. One where the compensation was delayed.
How many villages are affected?
There are many more villages, but I focused on only 3.
Okay.
Even we have used the database from the organization that I work at, Land Conflict Watch. We have like a lot of data regarding the conflicts, not just in Jharkhand, but like across the state. So I've used that data in my story. But I wanted to give like case studies, and that's why I focused on these 3 villages. One village, Kedla village, was where the compensation had been delayed, and not just the one that has been documented in the parliamentary response. Like there are people waiting, people whose land got acquired in 80s, even they are waiting. So that was the one village. Second was Ichagdi, where the compensation was completely denied, and it was denied on very flimsy grounds. Like, okay, you have been asking about it for too late. When these people have been making such requests for over the years, but then again the same thing was being done. You don't have this document, you don't have that document. So there was a delay from the official side also. So when the final time came to make a decision, they were like, now it's too late. Like too late to make a decision, and they cited one court case which was not related to the villages or to the region, saying ki, in that case also there were people who have been asking for jobs for their land, but the judge said that you asked for too late. So they cite that court case as a precedent, and they said ki, oh, you won't also get it because they didn't get. Now the third village was the Layo village, where the compensation was offered in 1984 when the land was acquired, but it was inadequate. That is what the people believe. Now it's very interesting because under the CBA Act, you're supposed to negotiate with the communities regarding the compensation. Like you have to come to a final conclusion ki, okay, before when we'll acquire, this is the amount of money we'll give you. So clearly that shows that the provision of the CBA Act is being violated. You are not negotiating with the communities. You decided, you gave the notification in the Gazette, you decided the compensation amount yourself, and you said ki, this is the money, you take it or leave it. And then people will not happy. They will ask you, okay, you can submit it to the treasury. We won't take it. But we're also not happy with you using our land.
Are there representatives in each village? Are there local lawyers that are helping people? Or is this forgotten now?
So, yes, that's a big issue. There are some people who have filed court cases. Now, there's also a process in how you can show your objection towards what's happening. First is to approach a tribunal, which no one knows. So, that's one thing. Secondly, if you don't get a decision from there, then you go to the High Court and then to the other court. So, there was this one person who, instead of approaching the tribunal from the Kedla village, he filed a case in the Jharkhand High Court. Now, the case went on for some time, and the judge, without really giving any comments to the case, he said ki when you have the opportunity to approach a tribunal, you shouldn't have come to the High Court. So that now went to the tribunal court, and it's ongoing. Like the process is ongoing. So very few people, again in Ichagdi, there are some people planning to file cases regarding denial of the jobs. And in Lio, I don't think there's a lot of awareness or resources. They said, we don't have that much money, we don't have that contacts, we don't even know a lawyer who can fight for us. So it's a very backward region, and it's very sad that all the opportunities that they were promised, or just the fact that this project is not benefiting the people whose land has been taken. So that's another thing.
And what occupation have these guys moved on to now? What is their main source of livelihood?
So in all these 3 villages, the people used to cultivate the land. And this cultivation was not just for like selling the produce. This was for self-sustenance. Like they will produce whatever wheat, all the crops that they would produce, that is for themselves, their family members. But now that has been taken. The source of self-sustenance has been taken. Now they are forced to do like daily wage laborer work, which they sometimes get, sometimes they don't get. So, and to just like, that's what they were saying, that it's so bad that we are in such a state of deprivation that before we used to cultivate for ourselves, now we have to work for someone else to get the money, then to buy the food that we can eat.
Yeah, and like you said, they have no say in this.
They have no say in this.
Not just in the land being acquired, but even how much the negotiations.
Yes, how much money they get.
When you are moved away from a place, that affects so many factors, right? Not just livelihood. And your story also mentions how the Coal Bearing Act 1957 says that compensation is always secondary. Like it says so in the act. But which you've rightly written, this leads to compensation being denied or delayed. But isn't there a problem with the approach itself? Like the act itself makes it clear that compensation is not the main focus, it is secondary. So that automatically nobody pays attention to it.
It isn't directly stated, but the provision, like it includes the acquisition first, then comes the compensation.
Okay.
So, I mean, it doesn't say the exact words, but that is what it means.
That would be a bit much.
That is what it means. So the thing is see, I don't want to sound too like radical, but it's like there is one way of development. We are not understanding that these people might not want the kind of development that we want. The act is made in a way that we are doing the greater good for the country, for the economic prosperity of the country, and these are just unnecessary
collateral damage.
Yeah. They are the sacrifices that you have to make. These people are not even being benefited, and even if they were being benefited, these are the people who would like to live the way they were always living.
Right.
These people don't want to go to malls, these people don't want to go to cinema, they just want to cultivate the land like they used to do. So this idea of like, we know what's best for you, like this is what will get progress in for you, it's very I would say it's a very colonial mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
So even the act, I don't think is it's very people's act.
Right. And what were your conversations with the people? Like, is this something that people have been actively covering? Have there been many reports of this before? Or was it for them also a big surprise that, from Delhi, you have traveled to speak about this? Because these issues are so important, but there are also so many that often, even as journalists, we don't give this the importance that it deserves. We don't prioritize these as the sensational stories. Land Conflict is an organization. You can check out the rest of the work. They do actively prioritize land conflict stories, as the name suggests. But what were your conversations with the people like?
You rightly said that these are the kind of problems people think it's very common, like it keeps on happening. Even for the Rajasthan one, the same problems, land is being forcibly leased out, nothing is being given in return. So for me, I thought it was firstly very important is that so that world doesn't forget. It keeps on happening, but you cannot just move on. You have to keep on writing about it. You have to keep on reminding the government or the civil society that these problems still exist. Secondly, it was very, I think, surprising for them that I went, because these areas were not covered before.
Okay. I
have extensively checked the media reports. There are reports comes out of Jharkhand regarding coal mining, other sorts of problems. There's so many problems in Jharkhand. But this area specifically was not covered. So to go to a place where I was not sure whether I'll get something or not, but to go there and then to find so many people, like on such a vast level, like this was happening, and officials had no idea. Like you go there, you name the village, you name what the problem is, and they would mostly be ignorant about it because they keep on being changed also. So it's not like the same circle officer, same district collector will be there for a long time.
I mean, it has been 22 years,
has been
right?
so, yeah. So people, every time a new person comes, they have no idea what's happening with the villagers. The same process is started again. So they were very happy, obviously, that I came all the way they just wanted me to listen.
Yeah,
You know, they just want to talk about their problems, and maybe like in a hope that others can also listen.
Yeah, and your story is a great elaborate read, and I do hope it makes the impact it should and people do wake up. I also wanted to ask you, what about the local politicians in the area? Is this something that they often speak about, even the opposition parties? Do they help the villagers, or is this again not a priority subject for them?
Doesn't seem to be a priority subject. It has not come out as a political issue from what I saw. And I don't think these people have enough power as a voter base also to be able to make the political leaders take up the issue. So I don't think as a political issue, it's a big thing. And especially they were not tribals, which is what I think they right now political parties, it's more of a hot issue to sort of attract the tribal votes.
Right. So I mean, great that you came across that question and somebody at least asked about this in the parliament, and I hope other parliaments do follow this precedent and bring up these important local issues to the front. It was great speaking to you guys, but we do have the last segment of the podcast left where you guys have to recommend something for our viewers and listeners. It could be something you have watched or read or listened to that you think everyone should as well, or at least everyone watching this should. So Sukriti, recommend something.
Okay, not very recent, but the Netflix show Fall of the House of Usher. I think it's very, very beautifully shot, very beautifully written show. It gives homage to Edgar Allan Poe, and I think anyone who is interested in Gothic literature, I mean, this is the show for them. Nice. Also, not a lot of jump scares. It's not your common run-of-the-mill horror show.
I think she's saying this just for me, so I do not get scared of the horror tag and watch it.
It's not horror. It's very literary and very beautiful to watch. Just like a lot of, I think, people who read literature or people who read classics, I think they would love it.
Okay, great. We'll check it out. Bhavani, what about you? What would you like to recommend?
So recently we put out, like, my bureau chief has written about Razakar's story, like how it is it's a very political one, but it's very interesting how history is being used as a tool to polarize voters. There's a movie also going to come up on this just before the elections, but yes, it has been postponed. I think everybody who's following Telangana elections should read the Razakar story.
Okay,
by Yunus, my bureau chief.
Definitely. I would like to recommend a piece in the Scroll's Common Ground section called Why Mumbai's Shoeshine Workers Are Fighting the Railways in Court by Nolina Minj. It's a very interesting story also because I have grown up in Bombay. I have traveled a lot by the local trains, and to see an organization really shed light on the struggles of this occupation that we don't think a lot about, and their struggle in court and how they have actually gone to court because of a proposed amendment and how that could alter their entire livelihood. So it's a very interesting read, and I would recommend you read this. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Land Conflict and News Minute have been doing great work. So do check the rest of their coverage, News Laundry's coverage as well, and our election fund. Do contribute. Thank you, guys. And with that, this podcast is adjourned.
Journalism at News Laundry is powered by the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Visit newslaundry.com/subscription and pick a payment plan of your choice. Pay to keep news free and independent. Your future, and indeed the future of democracy, depends on it.